today's episode of Vice Versa, VW holds their own Battery Day event. GM's Cruise buys another full self-driving company, kind of heating up the full self-driving wars. Toyota gives us whiplash by announcing a new EV, and then trying to slow down the EV adoption rate at the same time, and more. And as usual, I'm joined by the ever-perceptive and prescient Ricky Roy. How you doing, Ricky?
Good, Matt. How you doing? Man, Toyota, they just never fail to amuse.
Yeah, no kidding.
So what was your video this week?
This week I did a video on the Stirling engine, which is, I bought a little toy on Amazon and it sent me down this rabbit hole of looking at what a Stirling engine is, how it works, and how it could be applied to renewable energy storage. It was a pretty interesting kind of adventure I just kind of went down.
Yeah, you and my editor are in each other's heads because he had the exact idea I told you about this, but it's spooky. We'll have links, by the way, to our videos this week in the description, but this week I did what I thought was going to be, well, I think it is going to be pretty controversial, talking about Tesla's FSD and some of the questions that I don't really hear asked nearly enough. So clearly, you can imagine it's going to be, you're an idiot or you love it based on your feedback. But I think it's a good conversation. So hopefully you guys can check out both of our videos. But yeah, glad to be here. Episode number 18. Let's go.
Let's start it off with the first big story of the week, which is VW held their Battery Day event where they dropped a lot of news on us. Some of what they did was very reminiscent of what Tesla did at their Tesla Battery Day. So it shouldn't be too much of a shock as to what they covered, but they kind of covered everything from battery chemistry to supply chain to battery recycling and to the charging network. Like I said, very reminiscent of what Tesla kind of touched on during their Battery Day event. The whole focus was all about how they're trying to drive down their battery costs by up to 50%. And it includes doing things like building out 6 battery factories by 2030 and having a total capacity of about 240 gigawatt hours per year, which obviously is very good, but it's not quite Tesla levels, what Tesla is trying to strive for, but it's still extremely good. They're trying to expand their charging station network. As one example was 18,000 charging stations by 2025 in Europe alone, which is a pretty sizable ramp up. And eventually moving to solid state batteries. That one's not too much of a shocker because it seems like everybody's announcing that they're going to go to solid state at some point, but that's going to be a much future further down the road technology. So all of this is about what they're going to be doing over the next 5 to 10 years. One of the things they mentioned was by 2023, they're going to have a kind of a unified prismatic cell structure, which is this little guy right here. They're talking about moving towards all of their vehicles. So I think it was something like 80% of their vehicles will be using this structure at some point. Some of the other things they dropped that I thought was really fascinating was they're going to be doing vehicle to grid on some of their cars starting in 2022. And they did the whole sales pitch around this as to what everybody says. It's being able to store your solar electricity during the day and drop it back into your house at night or using it as emergency backups. So all the vehicle to grid fans should be really happy with what VW was talking about. And in my take on this is that this was not about VW beating Tesla or even trying to play catch up. It was just more of them showing what their plans are for the next 5 to 10 years and showing what kind of like laying their cards on the table and saying, here's what we're planning on doing. Here's how we're going to do it. It was very technical, not quite as technical as Tesla's approach, but it really did kind of show us that they have a really interesting roadmap coming up. And it gave me a lot of hope for the future of what VW is planning. How about you?
Yeah, if you scroll up to the previous little card on that deck right here, this to me was one of my favorite slides. So VW is not some small player. Lucid and Rivian, they're trying to build 20,000, 50,000 cars a year. VW is a massive player. So that slide to me is really, really good news. It tells you that they're going to build cars. Previously, they'd go, all right, let's build a car. And then what kind of batteries can we fit where we can? Now it's the other way around. Here's our unified cell. They're going prismatic. I'd love to have a debate about prismatic versus cylindrical and kind of really break down why companies go the different directions they do. But you do this, and now the cars are built around the battery. Kind of like you mentioned, you did a video on Arrival, how they kind of reimagined the bus and said, well, let's imagine what kind of a bus we could build in this kind of a square foot of a factory. So that's a really good move that'll help them scale a lot better. And it was kind of cool that they brought up Porsche. And they kind of talked about their racing pedigree and the fact that there's now going to be 2 models of Porsche that are electric. We should give them some credit. I mean, they've got some really compelling EVs. We'll talk about Toyota later in the show, but to me, this, like, if you had taken VW out and put Tesla Battery Day or Tesla Battery Event,
Yeah.
Power Event, you would have almost not noticed except for maybe the color scheme. That's how related they were. I mean, all the way down to calling them gigafactories, which, I mean, Elon has a lot of really cool terms for stuff. I love gigafactory. I think that's just going to be a standard in the industry now. But yeah, 640 gigawatt hour capacity gigafactories. They're going to build some of them themselves. They're going to work with partners, kind of like what Tesla did with Gigafactory in Nevada. And look at this one. Of all the presentations I've seen on solid state battery, this was my favorite because it was kind of like you always say, it's the icing on the cake. We're not waiting for it. We've got batteries today. We're going to do what we can today. But look at that slide. Their goal is, okay, well, if you want to make this route from Las Vegas to LA or, Leipzig to Munich, these different routes around the world, today, that charge time is 25 minutes on their Ionic or, Electrify America network. But when they have their unified pack, which will reduce cost, and there's going to be some other optimizations there, that drops to 17, and eventually in a solid state world and beyond, maybe 12 minutes, which to me kind of tells you, even at 25, it's not a deal breaker. So that's what I love about this. It's, you want to buy a car today, do it. You're going to love it. And then in 10 years, it's going to be just a no-brainer. So I thought it was really, and it tells you just how serious they are. Where's Toyota's or where's Honda's battery day, right? I mean, people, the sentiment I kind of saw on Twitter was kind of almost poking fun and saying they're no Tesla. People want VW to be Tesla. And they pointed to the fact that their stock was up this is the performance slide they talked about. VW stock was up on some of this news, and people were saying that didn't happen for Tesla. But if you ignore all that, let's just talk about like what the engineers over here are doing. Very impressive.
Yeah, no, it also strikes me as this is don't wait to buy a car. Buy a car whenever you need a car. We're gonna have your back for the type of models you're gonna want now, 5 years, and 10 years down the road. And that's what I loved about Tesla's approach. That's what I loved about this approach. And I don't know. After GM's presentation, I don't think was quite as good as this one, but they also showed a lot of really good promise and good thinking for their future as well. Between GM, VW, and Tesla all doing things like this to me now is every company needs to do this exact approach. It's like Ford, where are you? Hyundai, where are you? Toyota, where are you? It's like they all need to come out and show us what their 10-year roadmap is for the transition to electric. And if they can't do that, that's kind of a damning statement.
It really is. At this point, if you're Ford, if you're any of the other players, what are you telling your investors when they ask that exact question? It's like, how many factories are you building? How many battery factories? What are you investing in?
Yeah.
They have that partnership with QuantumScape, which maybe warrants an entire video by itself. But yeah, well, how do you answer that if you're Honda or Toyota? That, to me, this is the new standard. When Tesla did it, they were this hip, cool tech company, but now it's VW's done it. So now if you don't have this similar kind of a strategy, what's your plan when the EU bans fuel ICE cars, right?
Yep.
You're gonna have just a shortage and then just have sitting on your twiddling your thumbs. It's not gonna look good. So really, in the next year or so, don't you think everybody's got to have one of these kinds of presentations to kind of talk about their plan?
Everybody does. Like, especially with like the EU and other countries banning ICE cars by a certain point. It's like, you're going to have to address this. You might as well get ahead of it and tell us what your plans are. It's going to make investors happy. It's going to make customers happy. It's going to make everybody kind of understand what's going on. And the longer they're silent, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah, and remember that I think Taycan has stalled at periods during their production run due to battery supply issues. The ID3 has, along with software stuff. But if you're going to sit around and your plan is, I'll let LG Chem figure it out, I think you're going to be in for a rude awakening. So the companies that are doing this are going to, I think their stock price is probably reflective of that future.
Yep, definitely.
All right. We ready to go to the next one?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the next one is interesting because my video this week was about kind of the FSD wars, if you will, and Tesla's lead in this space. But Cruise, which we talked about, I believe, last week, is a self-driving startup that was bought by GM, funded, invested in by GM and Honda largely. They acquired a company called Voyage. If you look at their marketing, it really looks like it's tailored for elderly people, so people maybe who mobility is a challenge. Here's their website, and their tech stack appears to be largely kind of lidar. If you look at the cars, you can see a big kind of dish sitting on top, but it seems to be a lidar high definition mapping platform similar to Waymo. So my first question was about why Cruise would acquire this company. So I think they're operating in some small, meaningful way. They claim that they can do about 25 miles an hour, and there's going to be a lot of limitations in geofencing and stuff that's at play. But I think for Cruise, the biggest benefit to me is maybe like an acqui-hire to get the engineers.
Yeah.
There might be some overlap with the lidar stuff, but to me, the coolest part about this company, which I think is a really interesting look at how the first level 3 or level 4 autonomous vehicles will operate, and that is what happens when something doesn't perfectly go right. So this car, what it does is when it has a disengagement, meaning I can't make out the lane markers, I can't figure out what to do right now, it can actually send a alert where somebody from the Voyage team can pick up and remotely operate the vehicle. So the guy in this picture is like in some, Voyage warehouse, if you will, and he can kind of like tech support. I just did my taxes with TurboTax, and I'm kind of thinking that like SOS buttons, like I need your help, and he can hop in and drive the car. Because remember, levels 4 and 5 don't have steering wheels, they don't have pedals of any kind. So early days, if something does go wrong, this is a really cool approach. So I'm kind of curious about like latency, what kind of a network, are they using like LTE? Is it 5G maybe? And how well this works. It's kind of a cool concept. And we should talk maybe more about Cruise by itself, but Cruise to me is making some interesting moves and some kind of a splash in regard to some of the acquisitions and the work that they're doing. So I think we could probably maybe kind of cover them more. We talked about them a little bit last week. They're kind of quiet. We don't really know that much about what they're doing, how they're going to use Voyage in their tech stack. But there's a look at one of their little transit autonomous vehicles. And I think they're going to be a company that we're going to hear more about, especially as these FSD wars heat up.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head for it being an acqui-hire. Like when I read this article, it was immediately seemed clear to me of like, yeah, there's some interesting technology here that they probably wanted to get their hands on, but it seemed more about getting the people that built that technology to come over and become part of the team working on their different products. And I mean, it did say in the article that they were going to be working on, what is it, the Odyssey. Isn't that right? Yeah, Odyssey. The Cruise's Origin EV, so the ride-sharing vehicle. But the thing about this that kind of got me excited is it's like the full self-driving wars are really kind of heating up, and you're going to start to see more and more of the larger players in the market probably snapping up more and more of these smaller, like little startup full self-driving companies, because there's a ton of them out there right now, a ton of little players. I think you're just going to start to see all those guys get snapped up by the bigger players as acqui-hires for little pieces of technology that they want to acquire. It's going to be an interesting next, 5 years to see what happens as all these companies start to kind of go into kind of become a big mass of just full self-driving goodness in like maybe 2 or 3 different players, which is sad to see it kind of consolidate down like that. But that's where things start to get interesting, because all this technology being focused and being put together in a really good way. And Cruise Cruise is also shaping itself up to become kind of one of the de facto standards that you're going to see in pretty much every car out there. It's like you're probably going to see it in Hondas. You're probably going to see it not just in GMs. It's going to probably be everywhere.
I don't know if you read, there was a Honda level 3 autonomous car that was kind of doing the route in Japan this last week or so. It's a Honda Legend, which I think is like a Acura TLX maybe here, but it's a level 3 autonomous vehicle. And I was actually kind of thinking, oh, maybe it's using Cruise, but Cruise doesn't operate they don't operate in Japan just yet. So I think members from the team helped Honda come up with this, but things are heating up. What's funny though is, who in the chat has heard about Honda's level 3 autonomous test mule that's, racking up miles and they're going to build 100 of them? Nobody. I think Tesla just occupies the entire volume and there's just no space left to talk about some of the other players. But there's some cool stuff. And as people have mentioned, yeah, there's going to be failure. There's going to be companies that will fail, maybe get acquired for their talent. And there's going to be just a general round of consolidation. But what's interesting will be the players that emerge that become licensing plays. Like in my video I did this week, my analogy was iOS and Android. If Tesla's iOS, where they have the car and the tech, might Comma or Cruise, one of these kinds of companies, be the person that like, okay, we couldn't figure out self-driving, let's go license Comma or Cruise, somebody like that, and they become Android pretty much. And you ready to talk about the next one? So talking about full self-driving, no talk about self-driving is complete without talking about the king of the hill, the guys that are on top of this and completely blowing people away on a daily basis. But this article is about, I think it was Omar who shared a video. I'll just play the video here. This is a FSD beta car. Maybe I'll turn the audio off. Operating in a pretty complicated environment in SF with no intervention. So you can see all those little blocks and markers. The car is making stops. I don't know if that might not have been a four-way stop, but there's going to be like, pedestrians that walk out, and the car didn't have any issue. And this is at night. Look at this guy just kind of slows down here.
We're actually not seeing it for some reason.
Oh, you're not seeing it?
Yeah.
Maybe I can't play it in full screen. But we'll put a link in the description. Can you see this on?
Yeah, we can see that
now.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, so I can't make it full screen, but incredibly fascinating stuff. And there have been some videos lately that have kind of made some noise. There was that video in Oakland where the car didn't behave very well. And in my video, I talked about a couple of situations where the car is proving to have some challenges. So like, for example, left turns are something that are proving to be a little bit of a challenge. And I'm kind of curious if what the commenters say here. But in my video, I mentioned part of the problem is the cameras that look forward when you're making like a left or right turn, especially an unprotected left turn, are on the B pillar, which are 5-10 feet from the front of the car. So the car's got to creep a fair bit. So a gentleman named Chuck sent me some footage that he had a drone in the air while FSD Beta was making a left turn out of some intersections. And some of them it did pretty well. And other times it completely got bogged down and made the wrong move, was trying to go when it wasn't clear and stuff. So I think the bigger question or the bigger point is we're seeing unbelievable advancement from like when the first day they announced the beta, I think that was like November or something like that, maybe a little bit before that, to now. It is staggering what they've done, and they'll continue to improve. That's the nature of machine learning. The video that I made, and I see like Eric and Ben, I think, have already watched my video. I think Jim has as well. In my video, I didn't want to be like a downer or rain on anyone's parade, but I made my video because people were losing their minds about this. I was hearing people that were like felt pressured to get FSD, even if they really were barely able to afford a Tesla, because they felt like, if I don't get FSD, it'll be $20,000 next month, and all my friends are gonna be making $30,000 a month on a robo-taxi network, and I'm gonna be here like an idiot. And it's just like everybody has to like take a deep breath. This technology is incredible, but the robo-taxi feature is not there yet. And I kind of outlined a couple of reasons why. I'm not gonna give it all away. You guys got to go check out the video, but there's some questions like that camera placement. Like if we were going to build a self-driving car, you would have cameras looking straight left and straight right, like near the headlight and on the back. Why not? Why would you want to limit how good you could see, right? So there's Tesla claims that all your cars come with all the equipment you need for full self-driving. Is that true? Is it not? I think kind of time will tell. There's also a regulatory aspect. However great we all think it is, if the DMV in California comes out and says, here is the mandate of what is required, that's that, right? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? All right.
Yes.
So there's two sides to this. There's like two warring factions. It's like there's the group that I hear this said a lot on podcasts and things I watch where it's like, we're not going to have full self-driving in our lifetimes. And I'm like, that makes no sense to me. It's like, I know I'm going to be sitting in a full self-driving taxi and car within the next 20 years. There's no question in my mind about that. But it's not a year away. It's not 2 years away. This is going to be a slow rollout. It's like these features we're going to be getting in our Teslas are going to be fantastic, but we are not going to have true full self-driving where like everybody's using it and it's just cars driving around without steering wheels. We are years from that. It's just because of regulatory issues. It's working out the bugs. There's so much they still have to work out. It's like easy to go from 0% to 90% accuracy. It's really hard to go from 90 to 100. It's like that. It's that last bit that is where all the hardest work has to happen, and that's where they're heading towards right now. We just have to give them time, be patient. Don't worry about spending $30,000 to get full self-driving on your car to make money as a robotaxi. That's just silly. But it's sooner than most people think, and it's also further away than most people think. It's like Schrodinger's cat of full self-driving. It's like
it's both.
It's both things at the same time.
Yeah, that's really well said. And I'm all for the excitement. I think we need excitement. And I was in a Clubhouse call the last couple of nights talking to Tesla fans about this to kind of get more perspective for my video. And one of the gentlemen on the call had the best comment ever. He says, "Look, I think of FSD," and he paid $10,000. "I think of FSD as the ultimate and the world's most ultimate Kickstarter campaign. And if there's one company that I want to have my money to do the greatest good, it's Tesla." And I was thinking, wow, that is perfect. If you are in a position to be on the cutting edge of this and to see the smart stuff and all the other cool little things that it can do already before the full thing is realized, and you want to support the progress of one of mankind's greatest challenges, that's what this is. And if you see it that way, you're gonna be thrilled. If you have the expectation, that's where I wanted to make this video is people need to kind of realize that there's like a regulatory standard. I'm going to throw this out to you, and I'm going to look at the chat as well, see what you guys think. I was also thinking we get to build this. Like, this is a new thing. We get to do this right, kind of a thing, right? We don't have to do anything the old-fashioned way. Might the system be managed like air traffic control towers where cars can talk to each other, they can talk to the roads and ambulances and police. And so there's this like medium range, radio frequency communication protocol that gets established. One of my viewers sent me an article that like in 2016, the administration, I think Obama administration was working on this vehicle-to-vehicle protocol. It was canned in the last administration, but might be coming back. But might it be a managed network instead of the uncontrolled chaos that we have currently with human drivers? So there's just so many questions, and it's just fascinating. Just when I was making this video, I was having such a blast imagining what lawmakers are thinking about, what the engineers and the machine learning, people are working on. This is going to be one of the funnest stories we'll cover all year. I can guarantee we'll be back talking about it again in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ready to move on to the next story?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So next up, kind of a depressing story.
Wah, wah.
Yeah, this is the big sad trombone of the evening. Toyota lobbies the U.S. government to slow down the rollout of electric vehicles. If there was any doubt where Toyota stands in this electric transition, where it's like, this made it super clear. Basically, what ended up happening was there was a Senate hearing, and in the committee hearing was named Robert Wimmer, who's the director of energy and environmental research from Toyota North America. He was quoted as saying things like, "If we're to make a dramatic progress in electrification, it will require overcoming tremendous challenges, including refueling infrastructure, battery availability, consumer acceptance, and affordability." He will say that rivals have made aspirational statements, but less than 2% of vehicles sold in the US last year were battery electric. It's one of those, this story, I didn't know where to start with just the insanity around this, especially with the 2% of vehicles sold are electric. They noted that Toyota took 20 years to sell more than 4 million gasoline electric hybrid vehicles. last year alone, Tesla sold 500,000 cars, all electric, in 1 year. So it's like, I don't know why they brought that point up as like this. There's a damning evidence of it took us 20 years to sell this many cars. Well, it took Tesla, it's 1 year to sell 500,000. And they're not the only company that's going to be selling EVs over the next 2, 3, 5 years. It clearly comes across as Toyota playing some kind of game to try to delay to catch up because they're so far behind, and they're placing their bets elsewhere. They're all in on fuel cell electric, and they still seem to think that's the way to go. And on the other side, they're investing heavily into solid state batteries. So it seems, and that's still years away. So it seems like they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place with their two strategies, because they don't want to invest the money into doing current technology for batteries and then have to spend a whole bunch of money later to transition to solid state. It looks like they're just trying to leapfrog to solid state, but they have to buy themselves 8 to 10 years to do that. And it's just, to me, it's just so sad to see them doing this. Where we talked earlier about VW coming out and having like a really great game plan, laying out the next 10 years. I still have no idea what Toyota's game plan is, because they're giving me whiplash as to what's going on. And when they do stuff like this, it comes across pretty clear that they really don't want to go electric, that they're really going kicking and screaming. What was your take when you read this?
I think we were talking about VW laying it out. Here's how you do it, and this is how you don't do it. This is the company that hasn't invested in anything or done any meaningful retooling. It's gonna be a interest. At least I will say this: they're really good at what they do. They're probably the world's best car maker. Like, if I had to buy a gas car, I think I've always preferred Honda's engines, but the full package Toyota. Like, I think there's no one that does it better. And you think about companies like Fiat Chrysler, like FCA. By the way, the previous story, the Voyage EV self-driving cars used Chrysler Fiat products. They are not good at making cars. And so if you're not good at making gas cars, you're not doing electric vehicles, I don't know what you're going to do. Can Toyota just kind of limp to the next 5 or so years, maybe buy a company like, I don't know, I don't know. It's shocking to me how poorly run they are and how little vision. They have money, they have they have the factories, the engineers, the employees, the money, the growth. All it would take is to say, let's put aside 10%, something to do something. Maybe you're not all in, but prove out a concept. What if you made the next generation Accord offered in electric and saw them compete? Something, but
right. I mean, if I'm
the whiplash, I'm feeling the whiplash pretty heavily, especially when our next story.
Yeah, I know. The last thing I was going to say about this was, like, if they wanted to buy themselves time, like my theory is, it's like, why not partner with LG and Panasonic and CATL to build the batteries for you, so you don't have to invest in factories and all that kind of stuff, just to buy yourself time going electric. It's a really weird situation, which does bring us to the whiplash portion of the evening when we go to the next story, because Toyota announces their first EV. That's right. So
What?
Not only are they trying to slow down the rate of EV adoption, they're releasing an EV, which is where my head just continues to spin. It's only going to be in Europe, which says that this is 100% a compliance car. They're only doing this because gas cars are getting banned in Europe, and they don't care about the United States because we don't have that policy here. So they're only making this to release it there. And one of my takes on the look of this car was it's kind of a quirky little car. It does not look like a kind of car that you'd want to be using outside of city travel. It seems more like just like a little people mover for getting around the city, for driving around like maybe 20 miles or something like that a day. It does not look like
car.
Yeah, like a smart car kind of thing. It does not look like something that's meant to be a long haul driver taking the whole family around. It was an underwhelming announcement. Like when they teased the headlight image that we talked about last week, it was like, oh, cross my fingers, maybe it's something good going to be from come on Toyota. And what they came out with was not only this, but they came out with and we're going to try to slow down EV adoption in the United States Senate. So What's your take?
Yeah, Europe only. Well, that's probably good because I can't imagine very many people in the U.S. buying this. But if that wasn't enough, I think they've gone with the proportion. I think this will be maybe not like an Aptera level of efficient through the air, but I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't get like 5 or 6 miles per kilowatt hour, which means they'll use a tiny little battery pack and they're gonna not need to, have too much of a concern with battery supply. They haven't mentioned how much volume they're gonna ship, but it everything about it just feels like a compliance car. It's not the ugliest thing. If you look at the back of that, you can really see how aerodynamic it is
Mhm.
over the rear arches and the haunches. It goes around the rear tail light, and I'm sure it's a pretty sleek car. But are they expecting like maybe like mini buyers? Now Europeans, they have smaller streets and stuff. Maybe people will buy this. I'm not sure. I don't even know if Toyota really wants people to buy it, but
Yeah.
can't imagine that there's a lot of excitement about it. And that's what you want to do. If this is a new technology, why not make it exciting like a Model 3 or Model Y? Why not go for that instead of what feels like an economy compromise, right?
Yeah, it's an economy compliance car, which is just
Yeah.
so sad.
Toyota, I mean, this is Toyota, man. This is a company
know.
that I used to really follow very closely, and it
What
just shows
happened?
you
What
what happens
happened?
with vision and leadership.
Let's jump to the next
All
story.
right. So for the final story of the day, speaking of vision and leadership, I was thinking about this with Tesla. I think their greatest strength is Elon Musk and his vision. His vision is there might be like 5 other people in the world with that kind of vision, really. But the Powerwall, how smart has that decision to build this been after all these years? I really think VW should have a Powerwall product. Lucid is talking about doing it. They should do it if they do it. Everyone should have a Powerwall product because we really need it. And there's going to be a shortage, and that's about to get worse because now you can't just buy a Powerwall. I actually know some people who don't have solar and they just wanted the Powerwall, and they're not going to be able to now. And this is probably a good move for Tesla because this has been back ordered for so long. They don't have spare cells. If they build a Powerwall, they're not building a Model 3 or a Model Y, right? So the cell supply has been a concern. And I don't really know how good the margins are on the Powerwall, but I'd imagine coupling it with solar, which is how they want you to buy it now, is probably the more profit margin, higher margin approach. So that's the game. You can no longer get a Powerwall without solar. So I'm kind of thinking now. I've also heard from some installers that it's becoming harder for them to get their hands on a Powerwall,
Mhm.
which Tesla already has the cheapest prices in the industry for solar. You couple that now with the fact that maybe, so and so installer might be able to do solar for you, but they're not getting the Powerwall, and Tesla can. This could be another one of those huge, just groundswell movements for Tesla's energy business.
Yeah. No, that's actually kind of my take on it. It's kind of like I understand why they're doing this because they are supply constrained. And by doing this, it immediately cuts out a whole bunch of that demand. So it should make it easier for them to try to keep up with the demand. But there's a part of me that's like, ooh, this is kind of like a monopolistic move, like a twist of the knife to the rest of the industry because you're, like you just said, it's like smaller local installers. I've heard the same thing are having much harder time getting their hands on them. And if somebody wants to get solar and they don't want to wait for Tesla and they really want the Powerwall specifically, it's like you basically have one option now. And so suddenly these local installers you can't do anything with. So it's kind of forcing everybody into Tesla's camp, even if you didn't necessarily want to get Tesla solar panels installed in your house. That's the part of it that I'm having trouble swallowing. It's like, it's like if this is a temporary thing so that they can try to get the supply and demand back into a better balance, all for it. If this is like just the new normal going forward, even if they have enough batteries, it's like that's where I start to get a little like, oh, come on, guys. Come on. It's like, open it back up. It's such a great product. It needs to be everywhere. And like in my area specifically, there are battery incentives for your home. You don't have to have solar because you can be part of this virtual power plant system. They've just basically taken themselves off the table for that program here in Massachusetts. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, come on. Now we have to go to like Sonnen Ecos or other brands of home batteries because they've just completely taken themselves off the table. That's part of why I'm a little like on that.
And there aren't that many options. If you don't go Powerwall,
Hmm.
I mean, I think LG Chem has one, but I've heard even that is low supply,
Yeah.
possibly being changed, or the sizing was weird. You'd have to get like 5 or 6 of them in a chain. It's just not as sexy as a Powerwall you hang on your wall and it becomes like a showpiece, right? Tesla has all that kind of stuff so well figured out. Really, just copy their design, copy their style. These are batteries, a BMS, a couple like it's not rocket science. Other companies can figure this out. There are YouTubers who literally build these themselves, like Jay
Hmm.
Garcia comes to mind. So why so the people who've announced that they're going to be really serious about building their own batteries, which is GM and VW, to my mind, they should do the same exact thing. If you've got the battery supply, I mean, they're probably thinking we need every single cell for our cars, but yeah, it's a tough one. This is a we're seeing how scarce I think the lithium ion battery is going to become. Everyone's going to be seeing it the same way, right? Do you want to make $1,000 on a Powerwall, or do you want to make $20,000, or some fraction thereof? Because I mean, you'd need 5 Powerwalls to make a Model 3, but you get my point. I mean,
Yeah.
it becomes a business decision. So they're feeling more and more like Apple, aren't they? Where everything is, you want to get an Apple product, well, you better join the family.
Yeah, exactly. There's a part of me that likes that, but like I said, it's cutting out so many great potential like customer markets that they could be working in. And it does feel like to me like the primary concern was profit margins and supply. I think supply was the primary driver of this. So it gives me a little hope that maybe in a couple of years, maybe we'll see them open it back up to a broader market, but we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. And people have, I was just reading the comments kind of about the Powerwall. This is a beloved product, and a lot of people want it, especially, what happened in Texas, fire seasons. I mean, right now it's the rainy season here, but it's going to get dry again and things are going to happen. And the backup peace of mind is second to none. Don't you just love that feeling of knowing that you could weather a storm for a couple of days and
Yep,
potentially stay up and running?
absolutely. Well, that was the last story of the night. So we're going to do our typical thing of transitioning to the Q&A. And as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to us. Hit that notification bell. Don't miss out on future videos. It really does help the channel. So let's just jump into the Q&A portion.
Yes, starting with, we're at 50 likes. We have 160 people watching, so we're about a third of the way there. I know who you are. No, I'm just kidding. Just if you have a moment, hit that like button. Keep supporting the show. We appreciate you guys. Looking at this, Robert Brigham says, Sun Fusion has a system using lithium iron phosphate batteries, a 9 kilowatt hour battery pack here in California that I use and love. Robert, I'd love to know more about that company. I'm going to take a note of it. I had never heard of them before, but very cool.
Yeah, I have a friend that uses the Sonnen Eco and absolutely loves that.
Yeah, Rodney Jackson mentioned Sonnen as well. Good to know. Bong Hollywood says, what do you guys think? I actually want to ask you this. What do you guys think of Elon calling himself Techno King?
He's just trolling. He's trolling the SEC. He's trolling everybody. It was like, they did that because they had to file some paperwork for something, and he was just doing it just to be a jerk. And it's like, I love that. I love that about him.
I love it too. Have fun. If you're going to
Yes.
be doing stuffy paperwork, have fun with it,
Yeah. Oh, we have to file this paperwork? Fine. I'm the Techno King. Here you go. I love it.
My one question is he into techno, the music, or just like a technology, like Techno King? I was kind of thinking about that. Maybe the music, I'd imagine.
Well, did you see the music that he made, the NFT song that he made that he's selling as an NFT? It's like, that was, maybe it is the Techno Dance King.
Ben Pina asks, who will have the first pickup? Great question. I'm going to say Rivian. I think Rivian will have the first pickup.
I think so too.
I wouldn't be surprised if Cybertruck is early. I think they were kind of sandbagging when they pushed it out in 2022, but I wouldn't be shocked if we don't get them like first quarter of 2022. Yeah, and the master of coin, that was his other term. I love that.
Yes.
So Jonathan Root, Jonathan, I think you and I would enjoy having a conversation about this. He says people forget FSD will be commoditized, but it will get more expensive before it gets dirt cheap. Wait it out. So this is exactly my point. The equally dangerous part about this conversation people were having is, I got to get FSD now. I don't have money. I can't really afford it. I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to get it because it's going to be $20,000 next month. Making financial decisions about $10,000 that's always kind of crazy. But what's even crazier is there are people who believe that their Teslas, when FSD is delivered, will go up in value. Like I saw a guy who's projecting that his $40,000 Tesla will be worth $100,000 because it can make $30,000 as a robo-taxi while he's watching Netflix at home. The danger with thinking about all this kind of stuff is, like in my video I mentioned, there's a place in my video, close your eyes and like fast forward 10 years. So the year is 2031. Full self-driving cars will be like, remember when Mercedes had the automatic parallel parking feature on an S-Class Mercedes like 15 years ago? And then 5 years later, a Ford Fiesta had it, right?
Yep.
This technology is going to be cutting edge until it's a commodity. In 10 years, a full self-driving car will be worth nothing because every car will be full self-driving. Exactly. So what we're really arguing about is this trough in between. Between now when we don't have it and 10 years from now when, like Android phones, you can get an Android tablet like at Best Buy today for $80. They're worth nothing. There's no value to them because that's how cheap all these parts have gotten. So with FSD, if the long term is a commodity and today it's not available, we're really just debating the in-between. So might there be a day or a month when your car goes from 30,000 to 50,000 because FSD is delivered and Tesla is back-ordered? Maybe, but you got to remember that these are the worst cars Tesla will ever make. The ones they're making now. Like their next generations of cars are all going to get better. So I just hope, like when it comes to financial stuff, that everybody take a deep breath and like think it through and don't make decisions on speculation. It never ends well.
Be pragmatic. Be pragmatic about this. Don't get swept.
Be pragmatic. That is one thing. If you watch me and Matt Farrell, you should appreciate a little bit of pragmatism because you're going to get it.
A healthy dose of pragmatism.
Yes. Bill O'Barr, thank you for the super chat. He says, Amazon testing Rivian vans in San Francisco. I think they were doing some tests in Seattle area as well. Pretty exciting. What's weird about that is Rivian hasn't even like shipped their cars yet, like the SUV and the truck, and they're talking about this. So I'm hoping that there's enough focus to build one thing, start making money on it, use that money to build the second thing. Hopefully that doesn't get lost with Rivian, but really cool. And it's a good looking truck, unlike that USPS monstrosity.
We will never talk about that truck. That is the truck that we shall never mention its name, acknowledge its existence. Bong Hollywood, have you guys seen the Tesla semi-driving video released by Tesla? I have, and it's awesome. And I cannot wait to see that thing on the road driving around. It's going to be so cool.
Bernard, how's it going from Ghana? A continent I'm hoping to visit once COVID is over. He says, I'm a big fan of Elon and Tesla. He can't get a Tesla. Yeah, I think Africa is going to be maybe the next place where they start to sell. We've talked about this in the past. I think this EV revolution, some of the material mining, some of the other things that are happening, investments from China, the Silk Road that they're working on. I think Africa is going to become very developed in the next 20 to 30, 40 years. So I don't know when you're going to be able to get one exactly, but just be patient. There's some cool other companies doing stuff as well. And there might be like a VW or maybe like an Indian company like Tata, or there might be somebody working on something. But for a Tesla, it might be a couple more years.
Yeah. There is motion. There is stuff happening in that region. It's just lagging behind, but it is going to happen.
Juan Gracia, who's my editor, he asked if Lordstown and Workhorse are the same company. I think some high executive people from Workhorse left to form Lordstown, is the way I understand it. So no, they're not the same company, but they've got some leadership in common.
Thanks for the super chat, David. Thanks so much.
We appreciate you too. Thank you. By the way, we're up to 80 likes, which is pretty good.
And somebody said they clicked it. You, I'm talking to you. You haven't done it yet. Do it. Do it right now.
Jim Bates, this is great. He says, make my day and say that Waymo, Tesla, GM will all go on a track for a NASCAR style race. Now, as much as we're excited about autonomy, I'll tell you one part about autonomy I have zero interest in. Watching a bunch of robo-taxi cars racing each other. Take out the human element and racing falls apart.
Yes.
It's already very mechanical based and your machine, but now you have self-driving. It might be kind of a cool technology showcase. In fact, that could be kind of a cool like PR event for a company. We're going to race Tesla and Waymo and we're a comma or something like that.
Well, the one thing about those like super fast autonomous racing that does pique interest, you watch it for the crashes, and these cars are able to do things that you couldn't do with a human being in it. So it's going to be faster and more intense and potentially even more spectacular crashes if and when they happen.
There's some questions about the current administration and the EV tax credit.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say first, if you guys aren't aware, they've extended the solar credits, which were supposed to dwindle down this year and then be gone the year after. They've extended them a year, and I kind of think they'll do that yearly. As each year goes by and the numbers are good and the adoption is good. But with the EVs, what's your take, or have you been following what the latest is?
I haven't been following the latest, so I know that they're extending it and potentially rolling it out wider, but that's all I know.
About the 7,500 credit for EVs.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what.
So Eric says that Chuck Schumer and the Dems are proposing a cash for clunkers 2.0 basically, and it'll give more than $7,500 for trade-in for a gas car to get an EV. My concern there is if your gas car has a lot of life left in it, there's probably maybe they'll take them and
resell them.
Resell
I can't
them.
see.
Yeah.
I can't. That wouldn't make sense though. You'd resell it for somebody
Yeah.
to turn around and trade it right back again.
Yeah, this is I've been on a little bit of a controversial streak lately. I had a video talking about why like government isn't the answer for EVs, and part of it is this. It feels unnatural. I think first and foremost, let's get the guys who have like I was just talking with somebody who still has a 2003 Honda Acura Integra, which is a car I used to love back in those days. And he's like, I'm waiting to buy a new car. I'm going to get a Rivian or something. Let's let the guys that are ready to buy a new car, let's get them into EVs first and then slowly phase it up, because there was a huge carbon cost to manufacturing your car. And is there some way we could, it's tough. It's tough. This is why we got to have as many new companies making as many new EVs as possible to stop making gas cars. Because as long as you're making gas cars, you're just pushing out this inevitable date further and further.
I think I'm in your camp a little bit on that, of a car that's still in good working condition shouldn't be necessarily taken off the road because of the impact of manufacturing that replacement car would actually probably be worse than just letting that car go end of life. So it's like, why not just let that car go end of life? So trading it in, it seems weird. I don't know how that would work well.
Yeah, I remember when I went back to India for the first time after I moved, there were all these old buses, and I think the Indian ones come from like Russia, and like all the old American stuff goes to Mexico and South America. There's probably some move there where we can bring cars that are currently not even possible. Even a gas car for some people is not possible yet, or maybe they don't have infrastructure for EVs, and kind of secondhand them to them. And there's probably a way to do it, but it's tricky. 1877 Cars for Kids, the greatest commercial of all time.
Jeez.
For our Christmas episode, Matt Farrell will do a rousing rendition of that.
I will. Okay.
100 likes, by the way. Yeah, that's awesome. And also, I think 177 people. We might have. This is. I see growth. I appreciate all of you guys for joining us and letting me and Matt do this fun show that we each week. So thank you, all of you guys. Really, you guys are awesome, and I love seeing the same people that are here each week. It means we're doing hopefully something right. I don't know.
Yeah, I love seeing the same names each week. It's like, oh yeah.
And you know what we need to do, Matt? We need to make a list, and we need to meet these people. Like I think of Jim Bates and Eric Kessler and Benjamin Barr like I know them, and I've never met any of them. So we got to fix that one of these days when all this is over.
there's Claudia again.
I'll tell you, man, she gets the vote. She gets that like button engagement like nobody.
Crack that like button whip.
Jim doesn't like that. I'm not matching with you. I should have consulted with you before the show.
Yeah, we didn't talk this week about what we're gonna wear.
We got to start with that in the future. We usually do, but
thank you, Brian.
You know, one thing, it's not really topical news, but maybe we could work this into our show, Matt. We can talk about kind of how we see like future trends playing out. Like, for example, it's really excited to get excited about FSD and full self-driving cars. There's a gentleman in the chat, I believe, named Darian, who mentioned he has cerebral palsy. So a full self-driving car means he could have a private car ownership model where he could just hop into his car, go wherever he wants, and it drives himself. It'll be game-changing and life-changing for tons of people. But and so that's all incredible. But there's another side to it, which is, you know, driving a vehicle is one of the largest jobs for men in the U.S. and around the world. You know, it might be comparable in terms of the percentages. What do they all do? If you don't need Uber and Lyft anymore, you don't need DoorDash anymore, potentially. If you don't need long-haul truckers anymore, what happens to our economy in terms of just jobs and other things? Like, it wouldn't be like you would need a guy in the cab to oversee it. I think you would just get rid of that position, and the cost of goods and transportation would come down. But what do they do?
Yeah, no, that's
and maybe a show to cover.
That's definitely a show to cover. That's a meaty topic to dive into.
It is. There's a lot. That's a heavy one. Thank you, John Check, for your super chat. He says, Tesla didn't update for cold weather on the mirrors, so they get hot and burn your hands. Brake regen works better at 30 degrees, more aggressive. So I think he's maybe talking about the updates to the Y or the 3. And about brake regen. Yeah, brake regen is a function of the state of charge of your battery, the temperature outside. Like the max C charge rate is a function of the temperature of the battery, and it goes down pretty linearly as a function of temperature. So the colder the battery is, the more potentially dangerous it is, or not dangerous it is, but the more likely you're going to have dendrite growth and other degradation factors. So charge levels are usually controlled by the BMS if it's cold out. So once that pack warms up, you'll get the regeneration back. But it's incredible how nerdy we've all gotten about EVs. It was just like a couple of years ago, no one knew any of this stuff, but now everyone's a lithium-ion battery expert.
Is that LFP? I don't care about that.
LFP, I don't got a bed for LFP, you know.
Hey, Rodney, you're in Southern Mass. You're getting the Tesla solar roof. That's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, invite us over. I want to see that. It's such a cool product. In my video, I said it's the roof we deserve. Like, if you look forward 10 years, wouldn't that be the roof you'd want to see? Instead of like an afterthought, but built in. I think it's such a cool product. And I hope Tesla can scale that up to such a level that the prices come down a little more than they are now to make it even more ubiquitous.
And they're not the only ones doing that. There are actually a surprising number of products that are just like it on the market. I've been actually looking into that recently, and there's some options that I think look ugly, and then there are some that actually look pretty competitive to the solar roof tile. So there are options out there, especially if you're not in the United States, because the solar roof is only available here right now, and it's not even in every state. So it's like if you're over in Europe or anywhere else, you're kind of out of luck right now. But there are other options out there which look promising. I hope it becomes a bigger trend. More companies building these tiles, these roofing tiles, that just are solar panels instead of having to do separate solar.
Yeah, well said. By the way, let me see if I can find a comment. James Paul says, an interesting subject would be to talk about the ideal future neighborhood, like SimCity 2022. And I was just talking with Matt Farrell, who is working on a video about kind of the future of cities and stuff. So get over there and subscribe, and he'll be talking about it soon. I have a video that I've been working on as well. I had this interview almost a year ago now with a professor who kind of wrote the book on parking, and his gripe is about how free parking ruins neighborhoods and cities and stuff. You can say he literally wrote the book on it. And so I have this kind of episode cooking as well, but it'll be a couple months. There's a good one. Matt, what do you think about the lifestyle vehicle business model by Canoe? Did you see their little modular pickup truck?
No, I have not seen it.
So
Where can
they've
I
got a
find it?
couple of different, yeah, they got a couple of different products, but this modular pickup truck, if you find it, you can maybe just share your screen, is an interesting look. I think at this point, there's been all of this excitement, and the general consensus I get is people want to see a little more concrete proof of where you are. Do you have a factory built yet? Lordstown Motors is under a little bit of heat lately because of some allegations that some of their sales maybe weren't real and stuff. And it's easy to kind of do the comparison to Nikola.
Was this it?
Yeah, that's it. Isn't that cool?
That looks like some kind of moon buggy. It's like really cool. I love the all glass front. That all glass front is really. That is.
It makes you wonder why there were no vehicles that look like this until now, and a Cybertruck comes along, and now this, and the headlight design is pretty cool too, isn't it?
This is one of the reasons I get so excited about EVs, because it's like it's forcing people to rethink what a vehicle can and should be. It's like you couldn't have done this with an ICE vehicle because the engine's there. So it's like, well, you don't have to have an engine there. What can we do with this? Well, how about we create like pass-through zones and do crazy like little openings for things? It's like and they're doing the Rivian little seat on the side. Man, this kind of stuff is right up my alley. I love the rethinking of what a vehicle can and should be.
And I think people watching the show probably, or just generally who are excited about EVs and this industry, fall into one of two camps. People who have like just tons of excitement about all the cool new stuff happening. I think you and I fall in that camp. Then there's people who are really skeptical, and it's kind of like Tesla's cleared their bar because Tesla's shipping. They're doing it. It's not theoretical. And everybody else needs to prove themselves. But I hope that we can at least give these companies a shot, a chance to see, because I think that's a pretty cool truck. I don't know if like an average truck buyer would want one. Like I can't really imagine like a Dodge Ram 3500 man maybe wanting to buy that, but maybe a new generation of truck buyers. I don't know.
This guy?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
It's like, I'm not a truck guy, but I love the Cybertruck. I so want to get something like that. That kind of thing is right up my alley. It's like, I don't care about the traditional looking truck. It's like, what functionality can it bring? What does it do for me that I can't do already?
Rodney, about the Hyundai minivan, I haven't seen that yet. Matt probably hasn't either. We'll take a look at it. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Dave Froman mentions that Canoe was around before Cybertruck. So
cool. I didn't know that.
Good clarification. I didn't know that either.
debating between Cybertruck or Canoe. I bullion. Which one's going to come out first? And are you a patient man? I think that's the big question.
As you know, in this age of the refundable reservation, if $100 or whatever, I don't know what Canoes is, but I think the Cybertruck was $100. Maybe just see how it goes.
Yep.
But I'd imagine Cybertruck will be here first.
Well, it's that time. We need to start winding down.
Already an hour? Wow. Jim, thank you for all your thank you for your services with the like button.
Yeah.
We need to make a vice versa like merch T-shirt or something, and we got to send like I got some people we got to send this to.
Are you Team Vice or Team Versa?
There you go, and we won't tell you which is which. You'll figure it out.
Yes. That's awesome.
Thank you guys as always. Always a pleasure. We love you. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep. And make sure to subscribe and hit that like button if you haven't already. And we also have the audio version of the show. If you'd like to listen to a podcast version, it's at viceversa.show. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.